We're going to talk Monarch monitoring in the Prince Edward County South Shore KBA. And we're going to, first of all, John is going to tell you about the key biodiversity area, which is probably something new for most of you. So take it away, John.
Yeah, so the key biodiversity area is a outlined area that is being proposed by Birds Canada to really sort of highlight the fact that, as Cheryl mentioned, the South Shore is in Prince Edward County particularly is a hotspot for biodiversity. So it is very closely resembles the outline of the present important bird and biodiversity area, which it will supersede if it gets approval for the key biodiversity area. There's a number of sort of protected lands within the key biodiversity area. There's some slight changes from the IBA map, and if you were to see it side by side, you would notice that the provincial park offshore to Timber Island and Sweatman Island have been included, and also the little loop in up close to Black River. The McMahon Bluff NCC property is now included as well. So I'll go through and I'll list the various properties that are within this South Shore area. And the South Shore Joint District, we recognize that as our sort of our boundaries as far as the interpretation of the South Shore. I'll just preface this by saying that while they're protected lands, there are some variations in accessibility, and I'll just outline those as we go along. So on a federal level, we have at the dark green tip at the end of Prince Edward Point is obviously the Prince Edward Point National Wildlife Area, and that's run by the Canadian Wildlife Service. It's 512.9 hectares or 1,267 acres, and it was established in 1978. It's also home to the Prince Edward Point Bird Observatory as well, which has international renown. On a provincial level, we have again just offshore the Timber Island Provincial Park, and that's under the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks. It's 44 hectares or 108 acres, established in 1985, and that's one of the properties which I mentioned is somewhat limited in access. My understanding is that you have to have permission to go and actually sort of hike around there. Also on the provincial level, there's the newly established Monarch Point Conservation Reserve in the beige colors further to the west along the shoreline. And that's one of the largest properties within the KBA. It's 1,607 hectares or 3,971 acres split into two blocks, as you can see there. One at Point Peter and then one further east near Australian Point. And that, again, is under the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, and it was established just in 2023, so it's the newest of the properties. Now, Conservation Authority lands under Quinte Conservation, which Prince Edward County falls under, is you can see the Little Bluff Conservation Area, and that's 28 hectares and it's 70 acres, and established in 1974. Now, that's one of these the QC properties that if you want to access, they have a gate there and you have to have pay for a parking pass. Then there's the Hastings and Prince Edward Land Trust property in green further down on the South Shore, and that's the Miller Family Nature Reserve is 198 hectares or 450 acres, and that was established in 2012. And again, it's technically speaking, it's one of those properties that is accessible, but my understanding again is that you should ask for permission to go on the land. Now we get to the NGO or non-government lands, and that's primarily the Nature Conservancy of Canada, which is doing tremendous work in this region in terms of acquiring land. So you have the Hudson Rose property, and that's 31 hectares or 76 acres, and it was established in 2018. It's also home to the Hudson House log home. You have the Maple Cross Coastline Reserve, which is 55 hectares or 136 acres, and that was established in 2019. And again, that's NCC. Lastly, but certainly not least, is McMahon Bluff, up close to the Black River. And that's 97 hectares or 241 acres. And that was established in 2021. And that is one that I believe, and Eli Drummond, I know who's joining us, could confirm, is that I think it's really by permission only to visit it. And last, we have the Ducks Unlimited Canada property called the Big Sand Bay property. And it's 96 hectare and 234 acres. And that was established in 2002. And again, it's, as Cheryl can confirm, it's a little bit difficult property to get into. There's no established trails. And again, I think it's somewhat restricted in access at that point. Anyway, that's the properties we have. There are some properties that are being looked at that will hopefully be brought into the protected lands folder, and that's the South Shore.
Okay, well, we're here today to talk about monarch butterflies. And so, I mean, we all know what a monarch butterfly looks like. And probably we all know these are the monarch caterpillars. And that's a monarch caterpillar. This picture was taken by Dale Smith. And this is a chrysalis. I don't know. I have never seen a chrysalis in person, but Marilyn Lowry was able to get this great picture for us last year.
I could say, Cheryl, that that's an early stage one as well, because when the chrysalis is getting to the point where the monarch is going to emerge, it becomes transparent, and then you can actually see the orange and black butterfly folded up within the chrysalis.
Yeah. So monarchs depend on milkweed for nutrition. And there are two main milkweed plants that they use. The one is the common milkweed that many of us are very familiar with. And then they really also like the swamp milkweed. So you can see the difference in these two pictures. The common milkweed, the leaves are wider and they're kind of fuzzy. And the swamp milkweed, the leaves are long and narrow, and they're not fuzzy. They're shinier looking leaves.
The bloom for the swamp milkweed is a much darker pink as well, almost purple.
So I just wanted to point out too, sometimes we get fooled. And this is a viceroy. And here's the important thing to remember. The viceroy has this line across the wings, and the monarch does not. The viceroy is quite often a little bit smaller as well.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're seeing one flying around, try and get a good look so you can tell whether or not it's a viceroy or a monarch. But the first clue is, in general, that it's a smaller butterfly, even though it looks quite similar. This is the map of monarchs as they migrate in the spring coming up from Mexico. I guess what I wanted to say about this is the northern range of milkweed right here. So you can see that all of our whole area here is monarch area because they depend on the milkweed. The other thing that's important here is you see this line here is the corn belt. Now, one of the problems with monarch population decline has been decline in milkweed. And for many years, the farmers in the corn belt were actually spraying the milkweed because it's a weed. And it was getting, it was not good for their corn growing, or they thought it wasn't good for their corn growing. I think that has stopped. I think people are now a little bit more knowledgeable about the need to maintain the milkweed. And I think the farmers are at least maintaining the milkweed along the edges of their fields. So hopefully that will help the monarch to maintain the monarch populations. So I'm just going to let John take over here.
Yeah, so the what we're presently working on with, and this is also in cooperation with the Canadian Wildlife Federation, who I reached out to me actually because I was taking pictures of monarchs along the South Shore. They're very interested in collecting data province-wide regarding monarchs and where they're appearing, where they're traveling to, and in particular monarch roosts, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So, and monarch roosts are where the monarchs gather in sometimes very significant numbers within bushes or trees, quite often tall deciduous trees. So we're developing a protocol to help collect data about monarchs. And so initially you say here, take a photo of monarchs, their caterpillars or chrysalis. I mean, something else, though this would be much more difficult, you'd need a more specialized lens. Sometimes you can find their eggs. They're very, very tiny. But anyway, the idea is to take pictures of the monarchs. I will preface this by saying that you definitely need patience. They like to flutter around, but the key is to try to wait by. I found from just learning from experience here is to wait where they feed. Because then if you can spend a lot of time, as I did, running around trying to chase these butterflies. So if you wait to where they're likely to feed, that's your best opportunities for being able to record or photograph. One little idiosyncrasy that I found at Prince Edward Point last fall in September was that I could be standing in a field full of a meadow full of lots of goldenrod, which they like to feed on. But they tend to prefer thistles. So it was funny, you might have the isolated thistle here and there, and they'd bypass a huge patch of goldenrod and head straight to the thistle. So I did look that up and found out that butterflies are no different than humans. They have their preferred food. And if thistles are there, they tend to, and even the swallowtails will tend to gravitate towards the thistles. So again, the idea is to record images because that's the best way of confirming that that is in fact a monarch, because you will see lots of viceroys around, and just kind of confirm that we're seeing monarchs and recording where they're appearing and where they're going to. So I did establish back in December of 2023 a new project on iNaturalist, and I'll speak a little bit about iNaturalist in a moment here. Is called Biodiversity of Prince Edward County's South Shore. And it's, as of today, I just checked this morning, we have 9,867 observations, of which 86% are research grade. Research grade is where I take a picture of something, I think, okay, this is a monarch. I post it on iNaturalist, and somebody else who's knowledgeable about monarchs and butterflies will sort of confirm that observation and becomes research grade. So interestingly, of our observations in the project, 44% are insects, which kind of surprised me. I remember thinking that it would be a higher percentage of birds because the South Shore is very well known as a birding area. And then plants follow closely with 32%. Now that 9,867 observations actually stretch back as far as 2006. So when I created the project, what it did was it auto-populated up observations that fell within the boundaries which we established as the same boundaries as the KBA. And so literally all those observations from previous years were auto-populated into that data bank, which is tremendous. As I'll speak a little bit about iNaturalist, for those who are maybe not as familiar with it, it's an American nonprofit social network of naturalists, citizen scientists, and biologists, and built on the concept of mapping and sharing observations of biodiversity across the globe. So it's international. iNaturalist is essentially a worldwide citizen science network. iNaturalist describes itself as an online social network of people sharing biodiversity information to help each other learn about nature. And it really is a tremendous tool, speaking from a personal perspective. Their method of gathering data is based on what's called crowdsourcing, which was something I had to learn about. And it's a process that involves a large group of people, of dispersed participants, contributing goods or services or observations and identifications in this particular case. iNaturalist may be accessed via its website or from its mobile applications on your cell phone. So while it's not a science project in itself, iNaturalist is a platform for science and conservation efforts. It provides valuable open data to research projects, land managers, other organizations, and the public. So it is publicly accessible, which is nice. I found it very useful. For instance, I'm a bit of a wildflower person. So when I was interested in getting pictures of painted trilliums, which occur up, say, in Algonquin Park a little bit further north, I was able to use iNaturalist to see where the observations were being recorded within the park, and also at what time of year they were appearing. And then a couple of years ago, I was able to actually see when the first observations were being posted, and I knew, okay, the trilliums were out, and so I was able to drive up to Algonquin Park. So it's a very useful tool from many perspectives. Accessibility is you can interact with iNaturalist in several ways. There's the iNaturalist.org website, or there's two mobile apps. You have iNaturalist, IO05, which is an Android, and Seek by Naturalist, which is again IO5 and Android. Or there's also a partner organization called the Global Biodiversity Information Facility website, but I'm not really familiar with that. As you can search the public database and interact with other people who are adding observations and identifications. So there's times, for instance, when I take a picture of something and I'm not really quite sure what it is. And iNaturalist does have an automated sort of AI almost feature that will give you suggested identification. So when you upload something, it's incredibly accurate for the most part, though I will say there are times when you can obviously kind of confuse it, because I took a picture. You can upload pictures of footprints, for instance, and I had found this footprint from some mammal, and I uploaded it, and it said it was some African puma, which I don't think was probably the case. So sometimes it can be wrong, but generally speaking, it's incredibly accurate. And of course, there's projects that are created on iNaturalist, as we did with the Biodiversity of Prince Edward County South Shore, and they're tremendous for really kind of gathering data. And as say I'm not sure much more I can say about that. One thing I will sort of say that I'm not particularly familiar with is using a cell phone, the app for a cell phone to take pictures and upload it. It is nice from the standpoint that when you take your picture with a cell phone and upload it through that app, the GPS on your phone automatically auto-populates the location into the observation. Which I have to do manually when I take pictures with my camera. Now, I will say, so with what happens is you go out, you take pictures, and I'm sure hopefully most of you are somewhat familiar with iNaturalist, but you go out and you take pictures of various things. It also has the ability to take sound recordings as well, though I haven't got into that too much. So for instance, if you hear a bird, you can record the call and upload that as well. So, but with the pictures, so you take pictures and you upload them to iNaturalist. I'm a member of iNaturalist, and I have my observations file. And so then once you upload it, you hit on suggested identifications. Quite honestly, most of the time I'm getting familiar with enough with probably 95% of what I'm taking pictures of, so I know what it is. but you hit the suggested identifications, and it'll bring up a short list of suggestions of what something is, and then you pick which one you think it is. I say in most cases, I have to. I'm pretty sure I know what things are. But it is also useful in helping identify things because nature is very diverse, and you'll come across things that you're not sure what they are, plants or a butterfly or whatever. And so it is a very useful tool in helping identify things. So then you upload your observation and also with the location. And if somebody comes along, another user for iNaturalist, they will confirm your identification, or in some cases they'll say, for instance, like with hairy or downy woodpeckers, sometimes it can be, depending on the quality of the picture, it can be a little bit more challenging to correctly identify what the bird is. And then you'll have people come along and they'll make suggestions, and they say, well, if you look at the tail feathers, it's obviously a downy, or so forth. So it can be helpful that way in terms of identifying things. I'm not sure what else.
Yeah, I guess the main thing is that we're asking people when they're out to take pictures of monarch butterflies and add them to Biodiversity of Prince Edward County's South Shore project on iNaturalist, so that we can start to get more information about the monarchs that are in Prince Edward County particularly. And so you can add a picture of an adult butterfly, or a caterpillar might be easier because they don't move quite as quickly. And also, if you find eggs or chrysalis, it would be great to add those to our project on iNaturalist as well. So, and I know that maybe I flipped through those information screens pretty quickly, but certainly the one thing that you can do, if you can do nothing else, you can send a photo to John and the information, and he'll put it up on iNaturalist. So that's sort of the thing, the last option for you. And again, we can always ask for information. You can ask either one of us.
And I should add at this point, you don't the way we set up our project, you don't have to join the project and be a member of it. So the iNaturalist, that's one of the beauties of it, is that if you're already contributing to iNaturalist, you happen to be in the South Shore and you take a picture of a monarch, it will automatically be auto-populated up into our project. So that you don't physically have to go into our project to add it. It's simply, once you add it within those geographical boundaries as established by our project, it will be auto-populated into it.
Okay. So I guess we wanted to say a little bit more about the Monarch Roost project. We will not be starting that until later in August, because that's the time when you can actually see roosts. This project is kind of an extension of a project that the Canadian Wildlife Federation did from 2019 to 2022. And we do have their protocol. I expect that we will be, we're going to be modifying that protocol a little bit, because they did a lot of their searching in a car. And we know very well that there are many parts of the South Shore that are not very easily accessed with a car. So later on in the summer, we'll be asking for volunteers that are willing to walk into areas on the South Shore, maybe 2 or 3 times during that period in the first 2 weeks of September. So you can you'll hear about that a little bit later. This is a wonderful picture. This is what John and Lowry found last year, and which made us all aware that yes, there are roosts in Prince Edward County. Just to show you, this is the map that Canadian Wildlife Federation did, and they had quite a few roosts down here at Prince Edward Point, and then a couple over at Point Peter. So we'll be able to maybe extend the areas that are searched, because they were only searching in areas that they could get to by car. So we're hoping to be able to maybe do some walk-in searches as well in probably the first 2 weeks of September.
I'll have to say it was pretty exciting when Lori and I came across the roosts. We were actively looking for them at that point, and so it was pretty exciting. Yeah, we found actually 3 large deciduous trees that had significant numbers of monarchs in them. Cheryl and I have been talking. One of our goals, hopefully, with this is to also establish. I'm working on a habitat map for the South Shore, but also to establish potential sites of roosts along the South Shore, and that I think will become clearer as we sort of explore more and establish habitat types and so on.
Okay, and that's our little presentation. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing so that if anyone has any questions, we can deal with those. So questions.
Just sorry, to Alan. Alan
Yes.
here. Yeah, I had to jump off. Of course, as life happens, the computer tech came in just at the moment you guys were starting up. So I assume you've already said the recording will be available. Is that
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Thanks very much.
yeah, we'll get the recording up. The main thing on that is the information about how to use iNaturalist, but
Okay.
that's always available. Just send an email if anybody needs any information.
Okay. I did have one other question. I'm often out kayaking around Point Peter, and sometimes I'll be way out there and there's a monarch looking like it's heading across the lake, and there's like a solitary monarch working its way through, but it doesn't appear to be migration season. It's just a curious behavior. I wonder if there was any particular explanation. It sounded like a suicide course, but maybe there's something out there for them.
I wonder, my thought is maybe that perhaps it's just obviously being very light. They're probably very, very subject to being pushed around by the winds.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, with Prince Edward Point Bird Observatory, they'll get birds that are more traditionally Western migrating birds,
Right.
that have been sort of pushed off course, maybe by weather conditions. So
Right.
because something similar that the monarchs just simply been blown out to sea, so to speak.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. That makes sense.
So I've got a couple of questions here in the chat. I have many pictures and videos of monarchs at different stages, not from the South Shore. You can put them on iNaturalist, but the ones from the South Shore should go on the Biodiversity of Prince Edward County South Shore project. When you put them in on iNaturalist, they're going to ask for the location. And sure, I mean, that's a good thing to do, but the ones only from the South Shore go on our project.
And
so then
I can say, depending on a person's camera, I know some cameras have the capability of recording GPS location for a picture. I'm hoping to see if I can get mine to do it. And it makes it a lot easier because then you don't have to try to upload their location.
So MJ, you've got a question?
So where do you get permission for some of these restricted areas mentioned?
Oh, I'm just looking. She's
Sorry,
raised her
hi.
Hi. Go
Does
ahead.
this work? I'm not a technology. So I was just, it's more a kind of a suggestion. I started 2 years ago with a little tent. And I was wondering if there would be an initiative to pick up the caterpillar or the eggs along the road before the county mows them. because I've been I've been very successful at it's so easy to put the caterpillar in my garden in a tent, and like a week or a week and a half later I have a monarch. So I think it's just a suggestion that if you had a kind of a walk and say, okay, let's go hunt for these a caterpillar before they get mowed away, because I think the successful rate of actually having a caterpillar turn into a butterfly is much higher if you protect it from birds and predator in a tent and let it change before. So it's just a suggestion or idea.
No, it's a good idea. I don't think you're the only person that does that. I've heard of other people that
Okay.
that also do that kind of thing, and I think it's great. Whether we would do it as a project, I'm not really sure. I'm not.
Okay. I understand there's lots on your plate. Yeah. Okay.
We
Thank you.
can certainly, I think, make that suggestion that people are, kind of put that out there, because that's, yeah.
Okay.
I see where Jane Thompson is asking, where do you get permission for some of these restricted areas mentioning at the beginning? So that's one thing I think we're looking at, is in terms of when we do the Monarch roost survey, is kind of, Cheryl, I think you can back me on this one, is the idea is to sort of request people that maybe they pick areas they'd be interested in checking out during that time period, for a couple of reasons. One, to sort of make sure we got all the areas covered, hopefully, if we can, and also to where there are instances where you need permission. So for instance, if Jane, you said you want to go into an area where there was permission required, then perhaps we could connect you or get that permission for you. So yeah, there's certain areas that it's not quite as just unlimited access, really.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about permission is that it depends on what organization. Every one of those, the Ducks Unlimited, and the Miller Family Nature Reserve, it's two different organizations. So you need to go right to the organization, tell them why you want to go in there, and then get permission. And actually, we can facilitate that kind of thing. But it's early days to do that for this fall right now. But yeah, we will be working on that. And this will be for a specific reason. Yeah. So if you feel you really, really need to get into somewhere where you need permission, I guess let us know.
Mhm.
And we'll see if we can facilitate that. So, and then the next one, sorry, Jane, you're muted. You're muted.
Yep. Oh, still, yeah. It's not showing it as muted, but I just wondered if something with her volume.
Yeah, there's nothing I can do from here. So maybe I'll just go on. It's butterfly weed found in the county, and so is it suitable for a monarch host? I think it's suitable as a nectaring plant.
Mhm. And
And yes, it's found in the county.
we've seen it in Hudson Rose, I believe, right?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I know I've seen but if you're talking about the bright orange butterfly milkweed, I have seen that at patches of it at the Hudson Rose property.
Yeah. So Eli?
Yeah, hi. Great presentation, by the way. I was definitely looking forward to the information that South Shore had to share. Just for any folks who don't know who I am, I work with NCC. I just wanted to comment on sort of the asking permission thing. So my only comment would be, I don't see any reason why NCC would say no to having any folks on some of our properties to look for monarch roosts. But on our end of things, we might have to have the person or the people going out sign some sort of access agreement or waiver. So if someone is interested in coming to the property, just to do that a couple months ahead of time so that we can get that agreement and discussion going, so that the opportunity with the window to actually go do the monitoring isn't missed due to paperwork or anything. So that's all I just wanted to add.
That's great. Eli, thanks. I think our impression, our plans are that we will start in July and start organizing areas and hopefully get volunteers in place. So we should be okay time-wise. I just have a note here from Jerry Jenkinson to say that if anyone wants to come to Sheila's presentation on biodiversity and can't go in person, there's a Zoom option. And so you email jerry.jenkison, no N, Jenkison, at icloud.com. And then Jerry will send you a Zoom link for Sheila's presentation. Barry?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for everything, the information. I just have a quick question. I live on Hikes Point Road, so I rarely get down to the South Shore. It's really a long way from here. But of course, I tend to have butterflies around my property quite a lot in the summer because there's a lot of milkweed. I have quite a large property, relatively speaking. And I've once only found a roost at the end of the road, but I wasn't like consistently going. So are there some hints on best times? Should I go every day? I mean, it was pretty exciting. The one time I might have seen a couple of hundred monarchs in one of the trees at the end of the road. So John or Cheryl, if you have any hints on how I can do this better.
Absolutely, I can speak to that. Again, it's been a learning curve, but one thing, I remember I did research online, sort of tips on what's the best ways to see a roost. And there's no, just like anything in nature, there's no real hard and fast rule, but certainly in terms of locating them, it's a small window of opportunity. So what happens is they tend to feed during the day. Then as dusk is arriving, they tend to then move towards their roosts. So that's actually the tactic that Lowry and I took. Was we found an area in Point Peter where they were feeding. There was like dozens and dozens of monarchs. And so what we did was we made sure we got there close to the time that the sun was starting to go down at dusk, and then we just followed where they flew to. So that's kind of a good way, because really, quite honestly, particularly with the South Shore, it would be difficult to, if anybody's been down there, that it can be tricky walking through some of the areas. And so to try and get to what they tend to prefer, I've seen so far at Point Peter, was they preferred tall deciduous trees. And that's where I've seen that they were tending to roost. Not to say that they can't roost in smaller bushes or other areas, but what we saw was 3 large deciduous trees. So I think that the trick is this: locate them maybe sort of the afternoon and see where they're feeding, and then as dusk comes, tend to follow them. We were fortunate that we found a location that had just, I'd say, literally dozens and dozens of butterflies, so we were able to just sort of follow them. But that's the thing. Also, in terms of being a photographer taking pictures, it's a little bit of a limited window of opportunity, because you're catching them at dusk, so you only have so much time to try and get pictures of them. But
okay, thanks a lot. There's certainly 2 or 3 weeks late August, early September, when there's an awful lot of them coming through here. This is their flight path.
Great.
That's cool.
So Jane, in answer to your question about which areas do not require permission, the National Wildlife Area is open at all times. It's a national wildlife area. The Monarch Point Conservation Reserve, which is the two big pieces of land, the former provincial wildlife area and Point Peter Provincial Wildlife Area and Ostrander Point Crown Land Block, are open. They're public and you can go in there anytime. So there's a lot of land that can be explored without getting any permission. In general, if we are going to go on to any of the NCC or the Hastings Prince Edward Land Trust lands, we ask permission in advance. It's not that people are going to say no. It's just that we ask permission. The Ducks Unlimited piece of property is very overgrown, and you'd be bushwhacking to go through there. And there may be eventually a trail, footpath at some point through there, but not now. But there's lots of land that you can go on without asking for permission.
Yeah, like our NCC property, our Maple Cross does have a trail which is open to the public. The only thing, if you wanted for some reason to go off trail to look for roost trees, that's when you would need permission. But the trail is open at Maple Cross. And then of course you're more than welcome to wander around, not the property at Hudge and Rose, but definitely around the house where it's mowed. But yeah, definitely permission for sure for McMahon Bluff, or if you wanted to go off trail.
Sure.
And I think you're looking to the future, talking with Cheryl about this. I think hopefully the idea is that as we, our knowledge or database about the South Shore habitats and areas increases, that we will be able to identify areas that, or potential roost trees, for instance. Again, there's no hard and fast rule, but they do tend to gravitate towards larger, taller, deciduous trees to roost in this area. Because of the buckthorn and other different things, habitat. And so our hope, maybe, I think, is to eventually really have identified some roosts or potential roost spots. And then again, nature being nature, I'm hoping that we go back in this year and to the same 3 trees that we were looking at and find roosts, but there's nothing to say we will. The other thing too is that they can change from year to year, but also you just have to be maybe fortunate enough to hit it at the right time. So we went to these 3 trees once we identified them. When I got pictures, we went back the next night, and the one tree that you can see the picture of it was just filled with monarchs. Had monarchs still in it, but a significantly smaller number. So the assumption maybe is that either they roosted somewhere else or they decided it was time to head across the lake. So I can, but hopefully we can identify potential sites, and that will also assist people like yourselves who might be interested in going down and checking them and say, well, go check these spots. So
Okay, I don't see any other questions coming in. And if there are no more questions, we'll say goodbye and thank you so much for bearing with us. And hopefully we can get more. Oops, Alan is waving. Oh, what's he doing? Oh, he's clapping. Thank you. But hopefully we can get more records on the iNaturalist project, Biodiversity of South Shore, Prince Edward County, and gather more data, which will eventually help us all to know about the monarch butterflies and their population either decline, hopefully their population increases.
And
okay.
please take lots of pictures and post them, because it's more the merrier.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.